Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you very much for being here. I'm going to go ahead and start all of the introductions as people are coming in. We had baptisms this morning, and that's why we're a little late beginning. First, to those of you who are visiting with us, we welcome you. We're so glad you're here. There is a welcome table with red welcome bags outside the front doors of this building, and we hope that you would pick up a red welcome bag if you would like to learn more about All Saints Church. It is through that mechanism. There's a welcome card in there. There are also welcome cards just by themselves on that table. If you are not on our mailing list and would like to be on our mailing list, we send an email blast to about 8,000 people every Thursday, and to tell them about what's coming up on Sundays. And if you would like to be informed about that, we would love to have your name on our mailing list. There are also pledge cards in there because we love to invite people to give at All Saints and underwrite and help underwrite this amazing movement that we're in called All Saints Church, and our understanding of an interfaith approach to making love tangible in the 21st century. And we invite your participation through our action table. That's where we put our faith into action. And today we're sending a letter to the legislators in Sacramento about making sure that they're promoting a peace and justice agenda as they get back to work. And finally, we have a special table today that has multiple clipboards for those of you who would like to go further into this issue of mindfulness, and we will unpack to a great degree what that is during the course of our gathering together. This does not obligate you to something. It does not put you in a small group or anything. It's just a way for you to express your interest in learning more about it in a variety of ways. We also have handouts for you to pick up, and you don't have to get those now. But one is what I think is a very handy set of quotations, a poem which we'll meditate on in just a second, a bibliography. And what's really important in that is that on the back page of that handout is information about two existing meditation, contemplation, prayer, mindfulness groups that already exist at All Saints. One has been here for a long time, and you could go dip immediately into the work of mindfulness this very week. In fact, tomorrow night is one of them. And also, there's contact information for a couple of our speakers. Zelda Kennedy is going to be joining me in this fifth chair in just a few minutes. She has led meditation groups here at All Saints, is going to help me facilitate. Now, before we get actually into it, let me welcome and just say a very brief word about our guests. They were chosen because each of these three professionals uses mindfulness in a central way in their very unified, interconnected, but quite distinguished from one another, discrete work. And I'm not going to give you their entire pedigree. They'll let that leak out in just a minute when they answer the first question. But to my immediate left is Ann D'Angelo, who is a mindfulness educator working with children, students, parents, and schools. And she has a lot of training. Obviously, all three of these people have an awful lot of training. And interestingly enough, they share some mentors also, and helped me put together this bibliography that you have before you. So they've kind of endorsed the bibliography, vetted the bibliography, and also the quotations that are in the resource sheet. To her immediate left is Charles DeLeeuw, who's a psychotherapist, who's a member of All Saints Church. Charles did his postdoctoral work in mindfulness and trauma victims at the Honolulu Veterans Administration Hospital. And so one of the really important contributions that he's making to the world and also to our conversation today is how mindfulness is a prescription and an intervention in post-traumatic stress syndrome. To his immediate left is the Reverend Sarah Nichols, who's an Episcopal priest, who is a graduate of Fuller University and began worshiping at All Saints Church and came through our discernment process and was chosen and selected, and like Francisco Garcia and Sally Howard were ordained, she was ordained in a diocesan ordination service several years back, and is very much practiced in using mindfulness. She's a student, teaches mindfulness, and using it in palliative care with people who are dealing with end-of-life issues. And she'll talk more about that. Zelda Kennedy has joined us. You all know her as the Senior Associate for Pastoral Care. And she has taught mindfulness or meditation groups here and uses it and prescribes it in pastoral care interventions here at All Saints Church. So you please warmly welcome my fellow panelists. So we've met and decided that this is what we're going to do first. Anne is going to lead us in a very brief meditation experience ourselves. Then I'm going to ask each of them 2 different questions, and that'll take us till about 11:15. Zelda and I will be jumping in from time to time. And then Sarah will lead us in a second mindfulness meditation, and then we'll have Q&A. And we'll all do that and totally explain everything about mindfulness within a period of the next 40 minutes. So the idea is simply for you to get a taste, not to become experts today. We're clearly making headway about becoming a more contemplative as well as action-oriented community here, and I thought that this was a very important thing for us to do. So, Anne.
Welcome. I'd like you to settle in your seats, get comfortable. Go ahead and close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing that. If not, just focus your gaze to a spot in front of you. And take a few deep breaths in. And just focus your attention on the sound of the bell. And as the sound of the bell fades away, I'd like you to bring your attention to your breath, not changing the rhythm of your breath, but just noticing, bringing your awareness to your breath in and your breath out. Noticing any body sensations you may be having. Maybe you need to shift your position, make yourself comfortable. And this morning I invite you to use your breath as the anchor to ground you, to keep you in the present moment. We always have our breath with us, although we don't often notice it. You might feel your breath moving easily and effortlessly through your body. You might feel it mostly in your abdomen or your chest, or the air coming out of your nostrils. I invite you to place your hand on your abdomen if you feel called to do that, so it makes it easier sometimes to connect with our breath. And you may notice that your mind begins to wander, or you think about something something that happened in the past or something that may be happening in the future later today. And I invite you to just notice those thoughts without any judgment. You can just label them thinking if you'd like. And then gently bring your attention back to your breath. You might notice that you need to do this many times or a few times. Again, there's no judgment, it's just noticing. For presence. Awaken to the mystery of being here and enter the quiet immensity of your own presence. Have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. Receive encouragement when new frontiers beckon. Respond to the call of your gift and the courage to follow its path. Let the flame of anger free you from all falsity. May the warmth of heart keep your presence aflame. May anxiety never linger about you. May your outer dignity mirror an inner dignity of soul. Take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek no attention. Be consoled in the secret symmetry of your soul. May you experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder. Just let those words resonate and sink in to this moment now. And go ahead and gently in your time bring your awareness back into the room, opening your eyes to this new moment.
Thank you very much, Anne. Welcome, everybody. Come on in. We've got plenty of space for everybody to have a seat if you choose to sit down. And welcome those of you who are standing. My first question to the three of you is going to take up less time than your response to the second question. But I think all of us are curious about how each of you got into this business of feeling the power, thinking about the power, and experiencing the power of mindfulness. So, Sarah, can we start with you, and we'll move to your... Oh, no, I always like to move to the left. I'm sorry. Anne, it's a prejudice I have that you always go to the left. So, Anne.
I was an elementary school teacher for about 12 years in the public school system, and then had two beautiful daughters and stayed home with them for 8 years and returned to the workforce and found that my job or calling was really unfulfilling and decided I wanted to do something else. I've been meditating for about 20 years in various ways and started taking classes again at MARC, which is the Mindful Awareness Research Center at UCLA. And then got connected with Susan Kaiser Greenland, who wrote a book called The Mindful Child and works with Inner Kids program, and did training with her and realized, wow, I am an elementary school teacher. I know a lot about child development and the practice of mindfulness, and what a great marriage to bring that to children. So I began training. I've worked with Inner Kids, Mindful Schools. I've done professional training with John Kabat-Zinn, who started the mindful-based stress reduction, and I've done training in mindful self-compassion.
Great. Charlie.
Hi. So my journey to use mindfulness is both personal and professional. I think for me, I had tried to find the correct thoughts or have different thoughts or have less anxiety, which I'm feeling right now. And I'm trying to hold non-judgmentally. So for me, what I had found myself doing was struggling. And when I went to my postdoc in Honolulu, I found mindfulness-based therapies. And for me, the process was about learning to hold some of the thoughts and feelings that I didn't want and be okay with them, learn to accept them. And I was noticing that trying to change thoughts didn't work, not only for me, but for the patients I was working with. So I think it's a much more compassionate approach for myself and for the people I get to work with. I think formal training for me came in the form of acceptance and commitment therapy, which is a mindfulness-based therapy that I am specializing in. And I have sought out other forms of meditation through different community groups or resources. So.
Perfect. Sarah.
I have been involved in mindfulness or mindful awareness for over 20 years, but I didn't know that's what I was doing for most of the time. Just in terms of different Christian prayer practices, and also doing yoga and other things. And then probably about 15 years ago or so, I started doing a lot of research into resiliency studies, and then that led me into neuroplasticity and people like Dan Siegel. And so I started doing more and more reading. I started going to Esalen to do different workshops on mindfulness, meditation, and started just sort of seeking out all sorts of different ways to try to learn and glean from that. And actually this past Christmas, I just came back. I spent a week at a Tibetan Buddhist monastery in Scotland, of all places. But that was a really rich experience too. So it's sort of come from a whole host of things. And the one thing I will say, too, is that, 25 years ago, I remember basically failing a centering prayer retreat in that I slept through every single sit. And so part of what I really encourage people is that with mindfulness, there's so many different ways in, and that I found through different practices, I found my way of meditating, and it's different for every person. So I encourage people to really be open to the different modalities.
Thanks, Sarah. And thanks for reminding me. Those of you who were here for Dan Siegel's presentation and ordered his book, it has come out this week and it is available on the lawn for you to pick up, those of you who purchased it when he was here. So let's go back to you, Charlie, and we'll go to you and then Sarah and then come back to Anne. So if you don't mind, this question is about actually what do you do professionally? I mean, how do you use this with the population that you work with?
Okay, so the way I use mindfulness kind of varies. So there'll be different functions to the mindfulness that I use. They vary in complexity. So it could be a more basic exercise that is just focusing on your breathing, noticing your thoughts and feelings and not getting kind of tangled up in your mind. And there could be a more complex function, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. So the one thing I would say about a mindfulness-based approach to therapy is that it's about paradox. So when you don't want something, you have it all the more. So if I told you right now, do not think about a pepperoni pizza, don't think about the best pepperoni pizza you've ever had. You're laughing because what happens? You're thinking about the pizza, right? Or some of you will say, oh, I didn't think about the pizza successfully. And then your life became about not thinking about pizza for 10 seconds, right? So that is the idea of paradox. And mindfulness-based therapies are largely based off from that idea. So just a word about this. With traditional cognitive behavioral therapy, you're going to try to change someone's thoughts. So if someone is depressed, they might have the thought, I'm not good enough, I can't do anything right. And so you would try to challenge that thought, try to change it, find the evidence for or against it. But if you're doing a mindfulness-based approach, you could have the thought, I'm not good enough, I never do anything right, and still choose to remain engaged. Right? So if someone's having that thought, they may pull away from a family member or a friend or a job that they love, or you can have the thought and remain engaged. And so mindfulness-based therapies are going to teach a person how to do that. The last thing I would say, I guess, about the specifically trauma would be, Ed mentioned last week in his teaching that we are larger than our biographies. And this is such an important point for those who've suffered trauma or who are suffering from PTSD. So generally when a trauma occurs, they will begin to avoid. They'll avoid a thought, feeling, memory, smells, sounds, anything that reminds them of the trauma. And their life becomes about not having the trauma, like not having the pizza, right? And they'll begin to struggle because they're not accepting the underlying pain that is there, and they're causing a significant amount of suffering. So what mindfulness-based therapies do is help someone accept those feelings, allow themselves to have it. The other component of that is someone who's had a trauma may think that they're broken. It's often the case that they'll have the thought, I'm broken, nothing will work out for me. And so what I teach them is that there's an observer self. So if right now you could just take a moment to notice the first thought that you have that goes through your mind. So just notice it here for a second. Then notice if you're judging it. And don't judge your judging. But that part of you that's able to observe, that's the observer self. That's the part that remains constant and intact, no matter what you've been through, no matter the severity of your trauma, it's there. And you're whole because of it. It's the constant you. And so I work with people to realize that concept through metaphor and mindfulness. So those are some of the main ways that I use mindfulness in my clinical work.
Perfect.
I use mindfulness. I wear a lot of different hats in my job, and so I use it in a lot of different ways. But what I'll focus on today is the By Your Side program that I'm involved in. And actually, Don Gabbard, who's in the back, it was his idea initially to start By Your Side. But it's a program that we developed to train people to be compassionate companions for those who are end of life. So we send volunteers into County Hospital, Olive View, other hospitals and long-term care facilities as well, and other parishes and synagogues. And we spent about 3 years developing the program, and when I was focusing on the elements that I'm involved in, what I really saw as critical is that so many people who are caregivers suffer from compassion fatigue and vicarious traumatization and all sorts of things. And that if we didn't build in mindfulness practices and self-care practices, that people wouldn't be able to sustain this kind of work. And so one of the things, sort of the whole focus of our program is what is it to be a compassionate companion to somebody else? And I don't believe that that's something that, like a list of things that you do. I think it's a way of being. And that is very much what mindfulness and mindful awareness talk about. And one of the things that we really focus on is that you can't be compassionate, you can't feel with another unless you're able to be compassionate to yourself. People like Tara Brach talk about radical acceptance. And part of what mindfulness helps us connect with is that at the times when we most are frustrated with ourselves or angry with ourselves or judging ourselves, as you said, Charlie, that those are the exact times when we need to offer ourselves exquisite love and compassion. And growing up in a Christian tradition, while that's at the heart of Christian tradition, that doesn't really come out as what we talk about much in church. And so, except at All Saints, of course. But one of the quotes that I love, this is actually from Confucius, but it says, if we treat people with reverence, they become conscious of their own sacred worth. And so we use meditations, we use mandalas. I have some mandalas there. And for those of you who aren't familiar with them, the science research shows that when you color mandalas, it accesses two parts of your brain. It accesses the meditative part of your brain. So it actually puts you in that sort of contemplative, meditative state. But it also accesses the cognitive parts of your brain. So I work with a lot of older people, and doing mandalas can be something like Sudoku, where it can help stave off Alzheimer, dementia, and that kind of thing. So we use those, we use meditations, and then in the classes, our trainings, we do these mindfulness meditations, and then we also have CDs that we give people so that before they go visit somebody to sit with them who are dying or chronically ill, they have a brain priming meditation to listen to prepare before they go in. And then when they come out, another meditation to listen to so that they are leaving that person in God's hands or in that sacred space. They're making that transition sort of through the doorway back into their own lives. So we're disconnecting, in a sense, from that other person. Not really disconnecting, but just differentiating ourselves from them so that we can go back into our own lives without carrying that burden with us.
Beautiful. And before we go to Anne, let me say to those of you who are streaming or with us through streaming today, if you can go to our website and not only get a copy of or see this conversation, but also you can download both the resource that we've handed out and also these mandalas. And those of you who didn't pick up the mandalas, you can certainly do that. So Anne, talk to us about your practice in your profession.
So we talked about an emotion that arises and difficult emotions, and this is one thing that I do with students, children, and adults. And I love when I teach children that their parents come with them, because children are definitely in the present moment more than adults are. And so to be a mindful individual, a mindful parent, we need to practice mindfulness ourselves. We can't just expect our children to be mindful and then we'll get it by osmosis. So one of the things I bring and share with everyone is this, my glitter ball here. And you can see right now that the glitter, or maybe you can see, but the glitter is on the bottom right now. So when a difficult emotion or thought arises, or it could be a pleasant emotion, you could be really excited, and you could be all shaken up like the glitter ball here, and you don't have a clear perspective. You are reacting rather than responding. So when you're all shaken up like this, if you notice over time, if you take a breath, the glitter begins to settle. Now, it didn't go away, so if you're feeling angry and you're all shaken up like this, taking a breath, your anger is not just going to disappear. It's still there, but it's settled, and you can make a clear and wise choice. So I'm really helping children work with responding to a situation rather than reacting. And as we know from science from Dan Siegel, that the prefrontal cortex is not developed until the age of 25 or so children have a lot of time to practice this mindfulness, and we as parents and adults can help guide them. So I do work in schools. I have a private practice. Families come to me. I teach individuals as well, and really noticing what are our thoughts, what feelings are we having. For children, where is that feeling in your body? What does it feel like? What is the name of it? A lot of children only know happy, sad. So there's a huge range of emotions that they could be having, and it's helping them identify that and then giving them tools and practices so that when they start to feel that uneasiness, they have a whole toolbox full of practices that they can go to. And it's not about getting rid of the feelings at all. It's about being aware of them and how to respond in appropriate developmental ways.
Zelda, is your motor running?
Yes, it
Go.
is. Is this on?
It is
You hear me?
Yes.
As I'm listening to all three of you, and particularly with what you bring to the table, what comes to mind, and it ties in with Ed's sermon this morning about now and in the one word that explains something. What would be the one word you would leave with this group regarding mindfulness, so that if they were to leave here today and couldn't remember all of what you're talking about, what would be that one word?
For me, it would be heartfulness, because mindfulness, if you translate it, it means heartfulness. So it's that really heartfelt authenticness.
I always have something to say, so I can go if you like me. I think for me, it would be loving kindness. It's that, like the Confucius quote, that sense of loving kindness for self and loving kindness for others.
So I was thinking about multiple words, but one word I would say is compassion. It's about showing compassion to yourself and to others.
Thanks.
I want to continue. Sarah alluded to this when she said, in Christianity, there is a way that we do this. And Jesus said it when he said to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself. And I often say to people that if you're incapable of loving self, you will be incapable of loving your neighbor, because it begins with you. Thanks.
And what I also hear that reminds me of is something about being present to others, that if you aren't able to be present to yourself, it makes it so much more difficult to be present to somebody else. I'll never forget, in my early preaching career, somebody said to me at the door, we couldn't be with you in your sermon because you were not with us and you were not with yourself.
Wow.
Which was a very powerful, I mean, some of the most instructive lessons that priests get are after seminary, let me tell you. So Sarah, we want to open this up to you, but we wanted to make room for an unhurried, another meditative or mindful experience. So Sarah?
So if you can get as comfortable as you can in your chair, and gently close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing that. And as you did earlier in the meditation that Anne led, just begin to focus on your breath. Notice where you feel your breath. Again, is it in your abdomen, your chest, or perhaps just outside your nostrils? Draw your awareness to that breath of life as you inhale and expand with air. And then as you exhale, sending the breath out. And now begin to think about someone whom you care for very deeply. It may be a spouse or partner, a child, a friend, a parent, or it might be a pet. But begin to visualize the face of the one that you love. What are the color of their eyes? How does their face look when they smile? Think about how you feel when you are with him or her and the rest of the world fades away. You are simply delighting in one another's presence. As you continue to picture his or her face, I'll say words of blessing. Please repeat those words after me and say them for the one that you love. May you be blessed. May you be at peace. May you be filled with love and kindness. Smile as you think about what it would be like for him or her to be blessed, to be truly at peace, and to be enfolded in love and kindness. And as you hold your beloved in that place of light and love, gradually begin to shift your awareness back to yourself. Think about the fact that God has created you uniquely. You are special. No one else has ever lived or will ever live who has the same sacred self that you possess. Repeat after me again, and this time, offer that prayer for yourself. May I be blessed. May I be at peace. May I be filled with love and kindness. Allow yourself a few moments to absorb the gift of that prayer for yourself. What part of you is at peace at this moment? Can you feel love and kindness expanding in you? Savor what it feels like to offer yourself exquisite grace and compassion. And now begin to picture the people in your life, family, friends, neighbors, colleagues, people sitting in this room. As you visualize them gathering around you, extend to them blessings of peace, love, and kindness. We are all connected in this web of life. None of us exists in isolation. Those around you long for blessings just as you do, and there is enough love for us all. As you hold yourself and those around you in that space of love and blessing, notice the fact that we are all interconnected. And then gradually draw your awareness back to yourself and take a final moment to acknowledge that you have everything you need to be present to yourself today and to the people in this room. You are here, and you offer your most precious gift, your presence. Take a deep cleansing breath and open your eyes.
So we have 5 luscious minutes here. Abundant minutes. Here's the first question, and people are coming to get these microphones to take to you. Thank you very much, John. Yep. And there's one on the second row here and one on the 5th row. Go ahead, whoever gets it first. Go ahead, Mary Ann. Let's go ahead with you.
Is there any research on ADHD children and meditation?
Yes, there is. I actually teach a lot of clients that have ADHD, and it really helps them focus their attention. Their attention might be all over, but it's moving their attention to different objects. So it could be their breath, it could be sound, and it's giving them different practices. I can give you the articles if you'd like, and I have a great book to let you know about too. Okay.
Next question.
Hello, thank you all so much. I'm a hospital and hospice chaplain and also trained as a clinical psychologist, and been doing Zen meditation, mindfulness for a little over 40 years. For the last 3 years, I've been using mindfulness in my work with the hospice and hospitals, both with the kids in the hospice and kids with terminal cancer, and in the hospitals, both with the patients and with the nursing staff and the doctors in particular. And one of the things that it was touched on in what you've said, but I just wanted to raise it, is how powerful it can be as you get into this mindfulness work. To be in the present moment is to deal with this day-to-day stress because of nearly everything that in fact, I'd say all the stress we experience is either due to living in the past, regret for what we did or what we failed to do, or anxiety about the future, what we have yet to do or are concerned about doing. And that by training ourselves to live in this present moment, we actually are able to almost completely eradicate stress.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tom?
My question is for Anne. I am a teacher in a large comprehensive public high school. My concern with introducing this work would be it might be perceived as cultish, a lot of Pentecostal, and do you have any advice about how I might publish it so that it is welcomed, not seen as some other form of religion?
Yes, when I go into schools, and we talked about this, the language that I use is we are doing an introspection. I never use the word meditation. I keep it very secular. What we're really working on is going into the inner world of the child and helping them make sense of that and honoring that.
Thank you.
Hi, I have really terrible anxiety, and I always have, and I'm in mindfulness-based therapy right now, and what I'm still not getting is, even though I can sit with one thought, for 5 minutes or 1 minute or whatever, and it does eventually diffuse and relax, what I don't get is that I have so many thoughts all the time, and I don't have time to sit with all of them, one at a time. And so even though I can, feel good for 5 minutes a day, that's awesome, but how does it eventually diffuse into not being miserable the other amount of minutes in the day? Does that make sense?
Yes, I don't know the answer, but I will offer something. And what I would offer you is that when you become in a tug of war with your anxiety, whatever it is, for all of us, we probably have different forms of anxiety or sadness or depression. Our lives become about not having it, and that causes suffering. So if you can just accept that you're probably just a more anxious person. That's the reality. I am too. I hate being in front of all these people. I do. I don't like it. And the reality is that if you can move towards something that's more meaningful for your life, a value, whatever it is. If your value is to be, a good spouse, daughter, teacher, whatever it is, take steps towards that, because then your life isn't about avoidance of emotions. It's about something that's deeply meaningful. Yeah.
Last question? Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I just want to say one thing to that, too, is that you can practice this many times throughout the day. What we did today was like more of a formal practice where we're sitting, but you can just notice, wow, I'm having a cajillion thoughts right now. I'm going to notice what I smell. Oh, I smell some air that's polluted. Okay, that's unpleasant. But I'm noticing that. I'm just bringing my attention to the present moment. That is the practice.
Last question? Thank you.
Yes, I'm interested in gender receptivity to mindfulness. Wow. Is there a different, in terms of children, boys and girls, men and women, do you find a different way of approach?
I could respond to this. So largely, the population I've worked with is male. And so I do what I think we were talking about with talking about mindfulness being brought to like a public school, for example. I just kind of debunk some of the thoughts up front. I say, this isn't a mystical experience. We're not trying to fix anything. We're just helping you get more present and just trying to address the problems before they become a problem. I don't know.
And I have found when I'm doing blessings for persons who are nearing death, to my surprise, men tend to go to the present place more frequently than women, which has been a surprise for me. I just suspected that, we were the ones who would go there first, and all the men that I've done this with have been amazingly present. So that might have something. Maybe it's because they're nearing death. I don't know. But they're more present than women.
Thanks for that, Zelda. So to wrap up, we have multiple clipboards. If you would like to be on an interest list to follow up with this in one way or another, just to be on our mailing list about that. If you'd like to be on the general mailing list of All Saints Church, that's at the red welcome table right outside the door or on the edge of the lawn. And then there are handouts. Will you please warmly help me thank these wonderful, wonderful panelists. It was a great morning. Thank you all. It was just great. Thank you.